Hold on, Maria. You can start now.
Now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maria Mazziotti Gillen, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this reading by M.L. Liebler. M.L. is the author and editor of over 15 books. His new anthology, co-edited with Jim Daniels, is Respect, Poets on Detroit Music, Michigan State University Press, 2020. Liebler's Record Store Day special album with Al Cooper entitled The Moon, a Box, 2023. Memoir, Hound Dog, A Poet's Life of Rock, Revolution, and Redemption will be published in 2022. He is the director of the Detroit Writers Guild and the host of many different series in Detroit and online. He has taught at Wayne State University since 1980. He received a Penn Oakland Award in 2018 and the 2020 Miss Michigan Humanities Art Leader in Michigan, has received 4 Michigan Noble Book Awards and the Tilly Olsen Book Award in 2021. His webpage is www.mlliebler.com. Let's welcome ML. And now we all should mute ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm gonna start actually, like I was mentioning, I have spent a fair amount of time in Patterson. And this is a poem that I wrote in Patterson. And it has since been put to music. I do poems and my poems with music and different kinds of music. So this is one that had been set, not a lot's happened since COVID. The touring and stuff has been fairly minimal, although I seem busier now than ever. But anyway, this is called, and the music to it is wonderful, this guy wrote, but you're not going to hear that, just the words. It's called Bitter Tea, the Muddy Passaic. Little epigraph by Williams. Outside myself, there is a world. I drink the bitter tea from the bottom of the empty soul of the muddy Passaic River, under the great falls in Patterson, New Jersey, where the dark water meets the riverbed of reality. I turn towards God inside the Blessed Sacrament Church to pray over the history of the shattered, abandoned, and broken ghost of the workers that I see in their faded reflections through the scarred windows of the old gun coat mill, or the old Colt gun mill. The lost lives of Patterson's working class. There is a little antidote now that for the hunger and emptiness of unemployment. All the rivers of this broken world could never fill the gaps when jobs like these dry up. The muddy waters suffer, doubt, and loss become the mill's town's nightmare. No help wanted here. I sit with all the others, head in hands along the closed banks of the once mighty Passaic, waiting and waiting for our new day to rise up and take us all downstream with those dark river currents to a new America of time and hope, where we will again sing to remember our history with the old familiar tunes of work and faith. This is from a book. This is sort of the collection of books. There's poems, and this is one. This is from an early book in maybe the 80s of some sort. Assassination. My father, who had worked hard all his life, sat across the table from me and my mother with his big calloused hands folded, bruised and red like a small pile of house bricks. His dreams were made from honest work. My father, who had worked hard all his life, sat up late on the night of the 1960 elections. He told me about hope and prosperity for working people under Democratic leadership. In this world, we have the freedom to work and earn. He told me of good times to come. I could tell from across the table by the upward turn of his smile, he was happy. That morning from the east, a new sun, warm and rising like his own occasional joy. Since then, it has all come and gone like a whisper, my father and his dreams. This is one that, because today at this program, even though it's far from our home, some of my old school chums came up for the program, and this is one that I wrote and now is becoming truer and truer with the loss of each childhood friend. It's called The King Tree. We're playing it smart. We've settled on the essentials, an old baseball glove or two, an inexpensive Sears transistor radio, a pocket full of dried weeds, a rag ball, and a razor blade. We're playing for time to rub up against the king tree, time to build hope, time to remember all of the tears we let run down our cheeks and into the dirt. Yeah, we're playing it smart, and we've settled on this. We'll make this pact now. Everyone cut your finger now, and we'll make this deal. If we hold each other's dreams together tight to our chest, we'll never grow old and we'll never die. First one to break this deal ruins the future for us all. And you can just call your favorites out too. I'm kidding. Well, you can actually. This is an older poem, maybe 90s sometime. But now that we're thinking about the red wheelbarrow and stuff, this was kind of a little Williams-esque poem that I wrote many years ago called Rising Like the Bottom. Through the window, I watched a morning rising slowly like the bottom of a smooth crystal glass. From around the edges, I stared at a leaning ladder, lonely against a tree, crooked to the world, yet more straight than any sun balancing upon any horizon. Sky as blue as midnight, in so many ways brighter than snow. On a morning like this, a dove charms only themselves. A crooked ladder leaning against a tree makes much sense out of beauty. And there were some poems in here. Let's see. Oh, here's one for you radicals out there. Oh, that anti-war Jesus again, for Dorothy Day. He made it all so simple then. He who lives by the sword shall die by the sword. And he healed his enemy's wounded ear. I think I'll read a couple of poems from the most recent book, which has like 3 sections in it. I'm not going to read all 3 sections, but I thought I'd share a couple of these poems in here. This is one. called This Atlantic Language. What does not change is the will to change. Charles Olsen. Up from the Atlantic, ancient words splash against broken rock. High tides, wet letters pour down from blood in the moon. Gloucester's clouds cover us with grayness. Olsen is at rest in dreams that hang over Dogtown. We weep for all his words that we will never understand, spoken in the tongue of salt, understood only by the sea. My idea there, I was going to translate Olsen, for us regular people, which some people take issue with when I say that, but I only got a couple of poems down. I got one called ML to Himself, so that's kind of right. Last night inside my blood. Last night I was awake, counting fish inside my blood. All my life, their gentle gills have brushed against the blue walls of my dreams. I should have removed their rusted hooks from their tiny mouths to free them in the moving river of my blood, but my soul could not let them go. Last night, I tried again to fall asleep, counting each fish as it carried my life up to the surface of grace. And this is actually one of my childhood friends who was up at today's reading, who came from Madison, Wisconsin, where he lives now. And this is a poem I wrote for him. His name is Carl O'Neill. It's called 1 Ounce of Forgiveness. Alone in stillness, I stood, lost and broken by my grandmother's death, in the old German cemetery where generations of my family lie in the quiet earth, cooled by the summer shade trees of this last season. There you were again, and my anger swelled in the quiet of that afternoon sun where I could not find even 1 ounce of forgiveness for you. You drunken, dumb song artist, dope of my youth, long-haired, Indian-headed hippie with the same crooked smile, big, angel-headed hipster who once pulled my dreams out of their sockets like cheap comedy hung out to dry in the linen breeze. My grandmother gone now, and I would have given up all, hoping this day would never come. And there you were, floating up the big green cemetery hill to hold me in my grief, and I almost forgiving myself for our past, filled with stupid hope to slumber with the dead. And these are poems from the newest book. This is a true little poem. Man on the Moon. When the first man landed, I was 15 and the world was at war. I sat on our cement front porch of our brick ranch house while Grandpa drank a beer. Grandma sat inside that hot July eve on the plastic-covered couch, and she kept calling updates through the screen door. Mike, Vern, get in here, she yelled out. There's a man walking down a bright white ladder onto the moon. We were listening to the ball game on Grandpa's small transistor radio when a colorless, scratchy image of a man jumping off a grainy ladder onto the surface of a place we'd only seen from our old bathroom window. Look at that, would you? She said. My grandmother and grandfather only lived another 10 years, but on that hot July night, we were excited. All of us huddled on a small front porch, watching a small black and white TV through a screen door, marking one step for man and one giant leap for mankind. And this is the title poem of the last collection, or the last collection from Wayne State in 2016, I think. It's called I Want to Be Once, and that's the title of the book. When I pass from this world to another, I want to be greeted by my old dog, whom I loved more than much of my own life. I want to once again feel her warm fur, kiss her tender ears, pet that old tired pooch, and run together once more down the long corridors of memory. And I think also in this collection, so there's a section, the first section, which is America, or something about America. And then, which includes some historical Detroit poems. This is one called Sit Down Detroit, 1937. My grandfather was part of the first sit down in Detroit. As some of you know, it started up in Flint at General Motors. But when they came to Detroit, because the factory that my grandfather worked at, Dodge, Maine, was the largest factory at the time, with over 10,000 workers, the union decided that that would be the Detroit target to get the union. Sit Down Detroit, 1937. On the factory roof that night, blackness seems hungry and cold. Below, the workers tremble in the chill, heads hung low, walking and thinking, working and praying. This plant is closing. The men are staying inside until they get one big union for us all. 1937 Detroit, and this darkness will not hold. There will be fairness and equality in due time. These men have decided for their children and families, no more of this sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're sitting down right here and now. They're taking over this industry in spite of the police and bosses who have never respected who they are. Now they can call in their militia, ask their mayor and their politicians for help. But these men, they ain't moving. True story. So then the next section of this of the book are poems that I wrote in it's in a section called American War. And I wrote a number of poems. I've done a lot of work over the years for the State Department, and mostly cultural work. Now that I said that, I have to kill you all and end this right now. No. But anyway, I've been in some very weird situations. I went over to Afghanistan during the war. Obviously, it was no vacation. It ended up being so dangerous. I didn't tell my wife exactly about it till I got home. I've done a lot of work, as Maria knows, in the West Bank and Gaza. So I thought, well, how much trouble can Afghanistan be? And it was a whole nother ball game. And I don't know if any of you heard of this documentary called Restrepo. Restrepo was a guy who kind of held off a whole barrage of people himself, and then was, of course, killed. And this is called Restrepo's Shadow. The helicopter landed on a bed of rocks at Finley Shield, Afghanistan. I pulled my earplugs out and jumped onto the ground alive. I was in the old Russian compound where it is rumored that Osama bin Laden stayed for a little R&R. It's also rumored that they drained the pool, now a basketball court, and it was used for executions by the Taliban post-USSR. 2 soldiers were shooting some hoops when I arrived. My guide showed me to my room just past where the Taliban fighters had tried to crash the gate 2 days before. A firefight left all of them dead. He pointed to all the places they were killed, the Taliban, that is. We got one there, and one little bastard we shot right here and killed right there under your portable classroom. True story. And now I'll give you another true story from this section. It's called, and this is true, Kandahar mission briefing. We always had to have these briefings before we went out. And this poem kind of sums it up the best to give the image. Kandahar mission briefing. They brought me in quietly, sitting us all in a large half circle, a chalkboard, a captain, and a mission leader. The mission is to take this poet into city center Kandahar tomorrow. To get into the city, we will take 4 MRAPs. The leader will scout the road ahead for IEDs. The middle one will carry the poet and a turret gunner. The 3rd and 4th vehicle will serve as lookouts and follow-ups. If any of these vehicles hits an IED, and if the vehicle does not tip, do not, under any circumstances, exit the vehicle. If the gunner is hit or killed, the poet must grab his legs like thus and hold on to him. You must not let go of the gunner. When we arrive at the outpost, soldiers in vehicles 1, 3, and 4 will exit, search the ground for insurgents disguised as Taliban poets. When the all clear is given, the poet will exit vehicle number 2 with body armor and helmet and first aid kit. He will be surrounded by 6 soldiers. Once the okay is given, soldiers will bring the poet into the building where the poet greets the director and 34 male Kandahar poets and authors. If room is not compromised, poet may take off his body armor. If scene seems dangerous, he must keep the body armor on and his helmet at all times. After talk, reading, bowl of hummus, we must leave the grounds ASAP, no lingering. That's a true story. Let's see. Something else from that. This is a poem. I know W.D. Earhart has been in the Patterson Review. Is he in the Patterson Review now? I don't know. He just mentioned some nice things about my poems in a message, but it's titled after his one long poem called Mostly Nothing Happens. And the idea in war, he's a Vietnam vet poet. In war, nothing happens until it happens. It's mostly a lot of dead air, no pun intended. My hero poet, W.D. Earhart, served reconnaissance in Vietnam in a war where mostly nothing happens. But when it does happen, death is often close behind. I did not understand this until I landed in Afghanistan. Mostly nothing happened, but there were moments when I felt a jolt, heard a machine gun, and watched mortars fly, death waiting behind each explosion. Now, here's what I think. I think that small amounts of poetry is better. Short is better than long in poetry. You may disagree with me, but I think that. So let me read, let me just read a couple of poems to finish up here. I'm going to go back to the old book. Here's one old poem. I actually recorded this. It's on an album that I did with Country Joe McDonald, which is, most of my stuff is on Spotify or Apple or whatever you listen to. But we did this one called Woodstock Nation. Our generation got soul. Jefferson Airplane, 1968. Nope. They're never going to believe this some 10, 20, 30 or more years from now. Nope. They'll never going to believe that 500,000 young people sat around on a big old hog farm in the middle of nowhere for an entire weekend, making love, talking peace, and listening to hour after hour of ubiquitous rock and roll. This shit ain't never going to flush 10, 20, 30 or more years from now with the less than zero generation. In the future, it will be hard for young people to believe in a world where love was an anthem played in a farmer's field away from the cities and deep into the soul. There's probably people on here who went to Woodstock. Is there? Oh, here's one. I use a little epigraph of Allen Ginsberg in it. It's called The Dream of Life I Once Was. And Ginsberg's words were his final words to Jack Kerouac when he left the firing line show. He saw Kerouac out of the studio and saw him walking away down the street. And he said, "Goodbye, drunken ghost. Goodbye, drunken ghost." One Ohio morning, I awoke to a dream of life that had its murky beginnings long before I was born. Distant, far beyond what I could fully recall, were old friends, friendships I had nurtured like small lambs with the milk of my childhood. Somehow my dream, my life moved and exploded into thousands of different philosophies, directions, and ideas. Somehow I became tangled in the webs of my memory, and I lost the grip on my old friends' hands. Friendships I had force-weaned, but I did more. I did worse. I forgot them. I left them. I never returned until I was too far out, beyond, and it was too late to return to those days of innocent child's play. But I have grown just enough to hear the bellowing from my ghost friends' whispers. Their faint voices tell me to put my ear against the giant seashell of any neighbor's backyard and listen to the sea of myself rolling and wailing, their voices in and out, moving and pumping the aging blood in my heart. Okay, I'm just going to do one more. This is a poem that I wrote, and Maria had been with me several times while driving with Alicia Ostreicher from Detroit up to Traverse City. We were playing a lot of Janice Joplin and talking about her. So this is Sitting Shiva for Janice Joplin for Alicia Suskin Ostreicher. We started all over again, taking it from the top while driving through a crystalline midnight of another dark Michigan winter. Stars as pointed as bright laser musical notes hung above the universe of the sky. Cold as heroin outside and blank warmness inside. We listened close to each street blue lyrical poem of Janice's. We are driving and sitting Shiva for Pearl, me and Alicia talking about our raging rock and roll mama who was filled with the spirit of Mother Bone blues, wrapped between a Ma Rainey twilight and a Billie Holiday dawn. With her picture turned inward towards the walls of the automobile, we tore at our sleeves and chanted endless Kaddish and Christian prayers, knowing Janice was in our sadness and in the loneliness of each musical note. Off a distant mountain, we heard a coyote cry from under the blue jazz nighttime sky for just one more sweet chorus and more holy refrain of dem old cosmic blues. Thank you, folks. Thanks for sitting and listening to me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Maria and Smita, for asking me to come aboard. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you.
I'm sorry that what happens with the Zoom is that everybody mutes, so nobody can clap and be
That's all
heard.
right.
Thank you so much. You were amazing and
Oh.
wonderful, and I'm sure people really enjoyed it. But the problem with Zoom is you can't really clap and you can't say anything, you can't do anything. So it's like, and I've done readings, and it's like doing a reading and there's nobody there.
Yeah, I know. It's all right. You know, it's been 3 years of this stuff now. You know, you've been on my online readings and stuff, but you know what, Maria, you're coming back to Detroit now that I know you went to Italy. Here I was tiptoeing around getting you back on an airplane. But
I did get back on the airplane, but I almost killed myself in the process, I have to say.
and Jennifer didn't go with you.
No, my two aides, I had to bring my two aides with
Wow.
me. So
Well,
was-
I just
it's
seeing.
3 weeks and I'm still
Oh
exhausted.
God, that's a lot. I just did one short story with music and I got to take a nap. Like, come on.
I know what you mean.
But it's so good seeing you in your office there in Patterson. I got to get back to Patterson, I guess, when things get normal, just to
Right,
see you.
we gotta get stuff running again. It's
I just need to see you. I don't care about that. I want to have a nice Italian dinner with you. Thank
come
you.
and see me when you go to see your son.
Yeah. Well, we were just there for Memorial Day, but come and see you then, right?
Yeah, the next time you go see your
Yeah.
son, see me and we'll have dinner.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you guys. I hope
Thank-
you really enjoyed that, and I hope you got very good poems out of it. In September, I'll be open for submissions again for the Patterson Literary Review, so you could send work to the Patterson Literary Review and the Allen Ginsberg contest. And don't forget to send work in when the submission period is open again for Lips Magazine.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, ML.
Now I get to take a nap.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It's good to see you all.
Okay, you too, Maria. Okay, bye now.
You dear. Okay, Smita, are you there?
Yeah, Maria, hold on. And the stream. Okay, just give me